I'm Rabbi Gary Fernandez, and I'm the head rabbi at Synagogue Beth Israel in the city of Sanford. And I'm here to talk to you today about an interesting subject matter. Jacob the Deceiver? It doesn't make sense. Think about this. Whenever you talk about our forefather Jacob, and the first thing somebody winds up saying who's sitting within earshot is, oh, the deceiver. And this is really interesting because why would the eternal God of Israel say that he is the God of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov? I mean, wouldn't that be the same as saying, I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and the deceiver? That almost doesn't fit. Let's just take a look for a moment in the Torah. Okay, we're going to actually be not just talking about what Torah says, but we're also going to talk about the book of Hayashar, okay, which of course is a very, very solid foundation. The book of the righteous, or the book of Jasher in some of the English versions, okay, of the Bible. It says that, of course, Esav, he's the one who comes out first, Esau, and it shows that Jacob is still in the womb and he's hanging on to the guy's heel, and Yitzhak thinks that this is just such a great thing, and in a playful manner gives him the name Yaakov, and Yaakov is a play on words, literally, and it means heel grabber. Interesting enough, I don't know how the word heel has turned out to become deceiver, or has turned out to be liar. For instance, imagine if today I was to tell you that the heel of your foot is really called liar. What would you say? You go, what are you, crazy? That's the heel of my foot is the heel of my foot, right? I mean, it's my heel, right? And above it is the famous Achilles tendon, right? I mean, the heel is connected to the foot. There's just no way on earth that the word heel is liar or deceiver, okay? So, let's just look for a moment at the life of Jacob, just in a brief look. For instance, we find out that the Bible's description of Yaakov, Jacob, is that he's a man of peace who dwells in tents. Well, in Judaism, when there's a description of someone who dwells in tents, or that description is utilized to describe them, it is speaking of the fact that they are men of Torah study. And so, at the age of 15, we find out through the book of Hayashar, we find out that Esav is out there in the field doing what he likes to do, because it does describe in the Torah that he is a man of strength and he's a great hunter and so on and so forth, and that's what he likes to do, and there's nothing wrong with that for those who go out and do that type of thing. But Yaakov is busy dwelling in tents, busy dwelling with the family, okay, busy studying Torah, and his brother's out there hunting. Well, in the book of Hayashar, it says that Nimrod, who the Bible first claims to be the first person who's this great hunter on the planet, well, he finds out and knows about Esav. He knows that Esav is a great hunter, and he's known for great hunting, and he doesn't really like that. And so he's got his eye on this guy. Got my eye on you, buddy. And so what happens? Esav, it comes to his ear that Nimrod has got his eye on him. He's got it out for him, basically. Okay? Because Nimrod don't really like the fact that there's somebody else with the great title of great hunter. And so Esav, he stealthily watches the movements of Nimrod, how he comes out in the morning, as it says in the book of Hayashar, in the cool of the day, comes out with his men, his men go out to go hunt, and he stays with 2 bodyguards. It's always the same thing. Well, in the book of Hayashar, it says that Esav comes out and he just lunges at Nimrod and cuts the guy's head off. When he cuts his head off, the other 2 bodyguards ensue into a kind of one of those kung fu movie kind of fights. Everybody's fighting all over the place, and there's this blood-curdling screams that are coming from those 2 bodyguards because Esav is chopping them up. He's killing them. All the other guys leave what they're doing and come back and start having it out with Esav. Esav is battling them. And he is, he's 15, he's in great shape, but he's outnumbered, so he starts making a run for it. Okay? And anyway, the bottom line is, when he gets back to the camp, it happens to be the day that Avraham happened to be passed away to be with the Eternal. And so, as you know, gathered to his people. So what happens? When he gets there, he's exhausted. It even says in the book of Hayashar that he is so exhausted from this incident that he feels as though he is going to die. And so when he gets back, says that he sits in front of his brother and he says to his brother, "Brother, please help me. I feel like I'm going to die." It's not like what most people think, that the reason he feels like he's going to die is just because he's hungry. Okay? He needed some kind of sustenance to be able to revive himself. And so, of course, ensues the famous conversation about the birthright, where in the book of Hayashar it says that Jacob dealt with Esav wisely. Didn't say deceptively. Wisely. And then everybody knows anyway, through all of Jewish history, that Esav didn't care about that being that birthright and being that firstborn status, having that firstborn status upon him. He didn't care about it at all. In fact, it says in the book of Hayashar that that their father Isaac went to send both his sons. He wanted to send both of his sons to go and study at the academy of Shem and Eber, Torah Academy of Shem and Eber. And what happened is that Yaakov went, and he served for well over 30 years over there. And meanwhile, it also says in the book of Hayashar, Esav did not want to go. So he didn't. He stayed doing what he likes to do. Interesting. We're seeing 2 different characters here. Quite interesting. A man of Torah. All right. So anyway, but now we're back again at the place where you got this guy who's asking for some grub. Okay. So what happens? He actually is telling his brother, "I need to eat something. I got to revive myself," is basically what he's saying. And the brother goes, "Tell you what. Look, the bottom line is, everybody knows that you don't care about the birthright, and so why don't you just sell that birthright to me?" Well, he agrees. He agrees. And then in the book of Hayashar it says not only did he sell him the birthright, but he also sold the portion that he had in the cave of Hamachpelah, his burial plot, basically. He sold that too. And it says in the book of Hayashar that Jacob wrote all this down, and he actually had witnesses to testify, and he kept it in a book that he kept with him all the time. Okay? So then let's go and fast forward. No, stop. Let's just reverse for a moment. Rivka. Rivka's running around with a big old problem. She's pregnant with twins, and yet she, in the book of Hayashar, it says that she inquires to all the women in her neighborhood there, amongst the camp. Hey, has this ever happened to you? Because she's having a problem with her pregnancy that she's not dealt with before. She's never been pregnant, but she's never seen anybody else with this problem either. And when she inquires of the Eternal, she actually does that. In the book of Hayashar, it says that she does that through Abraham. She goes to him first and asks if he would inquire on behalf of her to the Eternal. Then she goes to Shem and Eber and asks them if they can inquire also on her behalf to the Eternal. And then they all three in the book of Hayashar come back with the same exact answer, that the Eternal God actually states that she has two nations within her, which of course we all know today is, well, you got two kids in there that can't stand each other. That's the bottom line. And that the older one is going to serve the younger. So she already knew this. So now we fast forward all the way past the incident with the food and the birthright and so on and so forth, and we go all the way to when Yitzhak now says to his son Esav, son, I'm about to die, and I would love for you to do me a favor and go out, please, and hunt me some game. Prepare it for me the way you know that I like it. Bring it to me, and after I eat, I'm going to bless you. Well, shouldn't Esav have said to him, gee, Dad, I got something to share with you. You know, like a couple of years ago, I did something and I didn't tell you. I sold my birthright to Jacob, so really you need to be blessing him first. Oh, well, that didn't happen. What did happen was, hey, no problem, I'll be right back. Whoop, and the guy cuts out, and what does he do? He goes and he hunts out there for some game for his father. But Rivka heard the whole conversation. And Rivka goes to her son Jacob and says to him, son, I need you to do something right now. I need you, you need to get me 2 goats, is what it says actually in the book of Hayashar, 2 goats, because what Isaac actually asked Esav for, he actually said, get me some venison, deer meat, which is great stuff. Anyway, venison burger, perfect. Anyway, so what happens? She says to the son, I'm going to prepare some tasty meat for your father, and I want you to go in there and tell him that you're Esav. Well, look at what Torah says. Yaakov goes, I can't do that. I can't go in there to lie to my father. And she's like, yes, you're going to do exactly what it is that I'm asking you to do. And he's like, but Mom, I really can't do this. And this is not something that I should do. And she says to him, of course, he describes the fact that I don't have no hair, my brother's a gorilla, so the bottom line is that there's no way I'm going to fool him. And she goes, look, if this doesn't turn out to be the way it's supposed to be, then let all of that be on my head. She's clearing him. And he wasn't the one who came up with the concept either. He goes along with it because the bottom line is, hey, he's a good Jewish son doing what his mother says that he should do, right? The Jewish mom said do this, and the son goes, all right, Mom. Okay, so what happens? So she puts him in the gorilla suit, right? And he goes in with the food, and he says, Yitzhak says, who's there? And he says, it's me, Esav. Well, this is really interesting. He goes, how did you get here so quickly? I mean, you just basically left. And he basically says that the Eternal gave him great favor. And that's when Yitzhak goes, wait a minute. That's not the voice of Esav. That's where we put the brakes on here for a moment. Pause. When he walked in and said, this is it, it's me, Esav, should Jacob right away have gone, oh, it's you, Jacob? I mean, Yitzhak. He should have said, it's you, Jacob. But he didn't recognize the voice. Why? Got to go to Jewish history. In Jewish history, it's taught that they were not identical twins, but they were twins. But that what was identical were their voices. Their voices were identical, which means that if they were both standing behind you and talking to each other, you couldn't tell if Jacob was on the right or on the left, because their voices were exactly the same. They were identical. So when he walks into the tent and he says, it's me, Esav, the father can't tell the difference. And the reason the father goes, that's not the voice of Esav, is because Esav never has the name of the Eternal on his lips. Never. Jacob always did. That's when he goes, come over here. I need to feel you. And then he comes over and he feels the gorilla suit. And then he goes, well, boy, it sure feels like Esav. But that voice is definitely not his. Interesting. And what happens? Yitzhak winds up giving him the blessing anyway. There are also some wonderful commentaries within Judaism that state that a peace came upon Yitzhak and that he felt comfortable blessing him. Come on, we're talking about the son of the promise. A man who God speaks to. You're going to think that just because he's old and he can't see, that his spirit could not detect that that's the wrong guy? So, quite interesting. It turns out to be the way God told Rivka it was supposed to be. That the younger one is the one who's going to be blessed. The younger one is the one who's going to be the one to carry the promise that I gave to Abraham. Because that's why the great God of Israel is called the God of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. God was the one who did it. In fact, it even says, and I'll close with this, in the book of Hayashar, it actually says, when they were sitting there and they were doing their dealings there with the famous birthright, that God was the one who brought this about. So if anybody wants to keep on running around saying deceiver, you really got to check yourself and say, gee, let me rethink what's coming out of my lips. Rabbi Gary Fernandez, Shalom.